I want you to imagine that you finally submitted your EB2-NIW petition after several months of gathering documents, only for you to receive that dreaded rejection letter from USCIS. You know the funniest thing? The worst part of it is that it's not because most people have seen they're unqualified when they get rejection. It's just because of very simple and preventable mistakes. In this video, I'll break down the most common pitfalls, 5 of them, and show you exactly how you can avoid them using real life example. You see that they are very practical. It's something you can take, understand, and use them in your own petition. So let me get you one step closer to that US dream green card, which is your desired dream. So today I'll be talking about the 5 pitfalls, the most common one that I've seen based on my experience and research and questions that several people actually have asked, on how to avoid and how to get yourself approved for your EB2-NIW petition. So you need to stay with me on this video. You are going to be learning a lot in very simple way on how to avoid rejection. So many times people ask me about, EB2-NIW. Maybe you don't know, you're not familiar with that. So the EB2-NIW is one of the few immigration pathway to the United States where you can self-petition for permanent residency based on your merit and national interest. So which means that you can have access to the 10 years US green card that can make you a permanent resident in United States. The interesting thing about it is that there's no employer sponsorship needed. You don't need anybody to file for you. There's no mandatory need for any lawyer and even consultant. It's something you can self-petition by yourself if you understand how to go about it. But the point is that because you can file it yourself, doesn't mean that it's very easy. I will tell you the truth, it's not that very easy, though it's something you can do by yourself if you are armed with the right information. So today, we'll be looking at the biggest reasons why people get denied. And if you understand why they get denied, then you can get yourself and give yourself high likelihood of being approved and how you can also avoid becoming one of them. So this is going to be a success journey for you by learning from several people that have made mistakes in their journey. So I'll go straight to pitfall 1. The biggest pitfall that people have today is what I call the national importance misconception, right? So there are many applicants out there. Maybe you just got a rejection or you just got an RFE. Many applicants assume that when they have achieved a lot personally and business wise, it means that is equal to national importance. This is not true. Immigration officers, they actually want to see how your work affects several areas of the nation, which is things like public welfare, things like national systems, things like large scale policy. Maybe it affected an institution of the government, not just your company. And that is what they want to see. And I'll be giving you 2 examples for each of them that you can easily apply to your own petition. For example, you're an agricultural scientist and you helped private agri business to improve their crop yield, maybe by 20%, for example. Some people, when they're writing their petition, because they think they've done great work, they write something like, my method helped my company to increase their production and revenue. It's a good work, right? It's a great work that you have done, but that is a wrong framing, right? One of the best ways you can write this is to say things like, my method has since been adopted in 4 rural provinces, improving crop yield across hundreds of farms, and also it is also been implemented in agricultural policy recommendation. You can imagine that. Now, what you've tried to do here is to talk about what you've done, the result of what you've done, and the impact at large beyond your local ecosystem. Let me give you an example too that you can also apply. Imagine a public health researcher, right, who designed a tool to track respiratory illnesses. A novel work, by the way. So many people, when they are doing their petition, they write things like, oh, my clinic improved diagnostics using my data model. You could imagine. Is that good? That is good. Is that fantastic enough? That is not fantastic enough. So the better way to right frame this is to say the model I developed has been shared with 50 plus clinic and is now being referenced in national medical training program for outbreak detection. Now, what you have done is to take the impact of your work beyond your local ecosystem, which is your company, to something that is broader, right? And you could see here that it's not about the profession, it's about the specific endeavor that you embarked on, which is your specialized work that you did, right? And that is one of the ways to get that. So let's go straight to the second pitfall that people have, the common errors. The second one is what I call the weak argument for being well positioned. So most times people get an RFE or they get rejected because of the weak argument for being well positioned. Let me explain what that means, right? So you need to show that you are not just involved in your field, which means you are not just involved in, imagine you're a biochemist, you're not just involved in biochemistry, for example, or maybe you are an accountant, you're not just involved in accounting, but you are uniquely qualified to lead your proposed endeavor in a way few others can, right? For example, the way I call this visa is that it's meant to be for few percentage of people in your profession, which means maybe you're in like top 5% of your profession. So you could imagine there are things that more than 95% of people in your profession do. That is not what you want to put in your petition. What is that thing that distinguish you out in your profession? That is what you put in being well positioned. It's not the regular day work. Okay, I ran reports, I developed dashboard, I did things like those things are normal day-to-day work. Those things are good in your petition, but beyond that, you want to put things that stand you out, right, among every other person. Again, I'll give you two examples from this. Imagine that you're an environmental consultant, right? And you've worked on climate projects with government agencies, maybe like three, four, five of them. You did real project on climate projects, right? There's a better way to reframe this in your petition. You can write things like, I led a national climate resilience audit and co-developed a framework that is now being used in three major coastal cities disaster planning protocols. So you could imagine that you've tried to scale up the impact of your work, that it is beyond the specific work that you did for a particular agency. It has impact on a broader level. And that is one of the ways to show that you are well positioned, right, to advance that endeavor. The second one is that you're a data scientist and you work in maybe educational sector and you're looking for a way to frame the good job that you've done, right? If you write something like analyze educational data sets and you develop dashboard that leadership use to interpret or make decision, right? It looks good because you have done fantastic when nobody's taking your work away from you. The better way to reframe this is to say things like, I developed a predictive model to identify dropout risk, right? Now, and in that way, you say you currently piloted across two regions, which means that what you did identified dropout risk in the academic institution, then it is being piloted across two regions and it's under review by the education ministry, which means you're saying that the work I've done, it has helped the government, the public sector, to be able to see losses in the educational institution. And now, because they've seen the impact of what you've done, what you did, your innovation is now being used broadly in other regions, right? Beyond your immediate school that you are currently using that. That is one of the ways to show that you are well positioned. Now, let's go straight to pitfall number three. The third mistake, and I don't want you to miss out on any of these pitfalls. They could make a difference between yourself being rejected or yourself being accepted. So the pitfall three is insufficient evidence and documentation error. Please don't mix them together, right? Oftentimes, people evidence they are not sufficient. Now, maybe in your own case, you have all your evidences together, but your own problem might be documentation error, which means the way you arrange your documents is not detailed, is not in a logical format that it could be understood by USCIS. And this is where many strong applications collapse, not because of qualification, but because the evidence is maybe it's vague or it's outdated or it's hard to follow. There's no logical coherence with that petition. Some people they get RFE and they bring it to me. When I look at who wrote the petition, sometimes I wonder that no matter who want to read this petition, they cannot understand because there's no logical flow into the petition. It's not telling a particular message, so you can't figure it out. And because of that, USCIS won't waste their time on that petition. They give you an RFE or they give you a notice of intent to deny. You want to avoid that. Example of that is weak recommendation letter. For example, people write in their letters and they put something like, "Oh, uh, Sarah is hardworking and was a great contributor to the company. He or she affected the bottom line of the company, was help us to grow talent." Those things are ambiguous, right? They are not specific in terms of the specific work that you did. One of the way to fix that is to write something like ECO led a digital ID integration that streamlined citizen verification across 5 public agencies, and it impacted over 3 million people. Can you see? Now we've taken that work, we've linked it up to the impact it has and also the scalability of that impact to a broader level. Now, another example here is poor organization. Sometimes people print their petition, no label, no index, no referencing, no right naming, and they submitted the document just randomly like that. The way to fix that is to have clear table of content, clear references, clear label and exhibit, name each of your exhibit and have a cover page for your exhibit so that USCIS, it's easy for them to go through the document and present your narrative in a way that it follows a, a logical path, right, for reviewers of that document. With that, it makes sense for them. So pitfall number 4, right, just 2 more to go. Pitfall number 4 is what I call the post submission slip ups. This is RFE nightmares. Oftentimes people get RFE. RFE is not bad in the real sense of it. RFE is an opportunity for you to correct yourself. It's for you to clarify things you never did properly. It's another way for you to shoot your shot again. So submitting your petition is not the end. Sometimes RFE comes and they're your second chance and not a formality. Don't ignore them, right? And don't respond lightly to them. So there are common errors to that, and I will just give you 2 of them. One of them is rushed RFE. There are times where people have more than 60 days, 60 to 70 days to respond to the RFE. And before it gets to my table, for them to bring their problem to me, for me to help them out, you realize that it's almost like 3 weeks to go, right? USCIS asks for more proof of national impact, right? What many do is just resend the same document already included because they are rushing, right? So the right action to take is understand the specific issues that USCIS raised in your petition, itemize them one by one, and make sure that you provide detailed response to each one of them. If they flag 4 items, itemize these 4 items. Ask yourself, why did they ask for you to clarify these 4 items, and provide response to each one of them. Submit new press coverage, things like policy citation, maybe new government policy, maybe some work you never put before. You can bring back that work again as new evidence into it, provided it's not new evidence that you produce after you submitted the document or newly released report of the government, right? Put that in your petition and it's going to make your RFE very strong. A second example is missed deadline. It might look like, do people make this error? Yes, people make this error. You miss the RFE deadline by forgetting your case number. Sometimes people forget their case number, people don't track their date, and people don't factor the time. The third one here is people don't factor the time for delivery. For example, people get their job done and they send it through UPS only for it to get there 3 days after the deadline. You need to factor where you are sending it from. For example, you want to send your RFE from Nigeria, you want to send it to Texas, for example. You need to factor in, even if you are using express delivery, factor in holidays, factor in the bank holidays in the 2 countries, factor in the time they will take it. Just 1 day missed deadline can be different between yourself being rejected and yourself being approved. Set multiple calendars, right? Keep master record of your file and make sure that you provide buffer for critical things like time for you to get new document, time for you to write the response for the RFE, and postal service delivery time. You want to make sure that you handle that. The final one is the pitfall 5. And this pitfall 5 is where majority of people that I see today that get rejection. Let me just tell you, yeah, there are people today that submit their petition and they get outright rejection. There's no reason for them to clarify. USC has understood what they wrote, no need for clarification, and they get straight rejection. And most times, this problem is because of oversimplifying the process or sometimes misunderstanding the criteria. One of the most silent killers of good application is treating EB2-NIW like a job application. It's not a job application. It is also not about having impressive CV. I'm sure you've won award before. You've grown your career thanks to you. You become a director in companies. You've won many awards before. It's wonderful. It's about satisfying the Lego standard under the Data framework. You don't tick the boxes For the three prong, forget about it, right? And that is what happened to most people. They assume now I've done pretty well for myself. I understand that, but it does not apply in this case. There are legal requirements that you must meet. You don't meet them, forget about it. And one of the pitfalls here is people will tell me and say, my resume will speak for itself because I work with big companies. I work with the big oil companies. I work with the big telecoms. I work with Apple. Because of that, my EB2-NIW should fly. I work with Shell, with Chevron, with big companies. And because of that, you assume automatically your EB2-NIW will be approved. It doesn't work. In fact, if you go back to my page, there's a case of a pilot that worked with one of the biggest airline in America. It was rejected. His application was fully rejected, right? So it's not because your profession is good. It's not because you have good profile, good resume. It's majorly if you meet the legal requirements. So you need to show the impact of your work in your sector. For example, in this case of maybe you're a finance expert, you need to show, right, how your work has impacted national financial regulation, how it has impacted policy, the public access, and not just corporate profit of your organization. Example here also, the second one here is when people ignore the three-prong standard. When you're writing your petition, some people have seen such kind of cases, which is very shocking to me. When they submit their petition, they just write their petition like they're writing a CV. This is not correct. Sometimes people just randomly list all their awards and accomplishment thinking is going to bamboozle the reviewer. It doesn't work that way, right? What you need to do in your petition structure is to write it along the three prongs. The prong one, substantial merit and national importance, right? You need to go to whether you are well positioned to advance that endeavor. Then you need to talk about the reason why you should get a waiver, right, for your petition. You need to write them in that structure because when you are getting an RFE, it's going to be based on that logical structure, right? So now let's recap what you've learned so far and off we are done to the next video. So to recap it here, the five biggest EB2-NIW mistakes are when you confuse your personal sources with national importance, number one. Number two, when you fail to show that you are uniquely positioned to lead your work, which is that endeavor. Details of that I've shared it earlier. Number three is when you submit weak, vague, and disorganized documentation. When your package is not in logical order and is not telling a coherent story. The fourth one is when you don't respond or you don't handle your RFE properly, right? And your submission is bad when you get an RFE. The last one is that when you assume that your resume is enough for you to get an approval, you oversimplify, right? The legal criteria of the EB2-NIW. If you keep these five in mind and you can avoid these five errors, your likelihood of being approved is extremely very high. Thank you very much for listening to me. If you need support for your EB2-NIW or EB1, email us usgreencard@peopleamp.io. And if you'd like to join our community, it's the largest EB2-NIW or EB1 community in the whole world where you can get access to information. Join our community. You see it here. Just go to linktree/peopleamp.io. And finally, I want to let you know this so that you don't miss this type of information. Subscribe, like, right, and drop your comment. If there's a topic you want me to take, just drop it there, then I will definitely take it up. Thank you very much. My name is Sola Diamonds. I'm the strategist. Have a lovely day. Bye.